So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to another episode of Is It That Bad? Where we talk about albums that probably were misunderstood. Sometimes they're playing awful. And we take a look back at them and listen with them with fresh ears. So, we're going to talk about our album by this band, Green Day, but obviously it won't be Dookie. We're talking about an album that their last album that came out in 2020, and it's called Father of All Motherfuckers. And this album came out at the beginning of 2020, and I don't know, but when I see this, I think this was drawn by my kid, or because it looks so juvenile. And yeah, this is an album that came out like I think it was like January or February of 2020 before something happened called COVID. So I think a lot of people like forgot that this album existed. It came out February 7th of 2020. So I think since that year was so shitty, I think that a lot of people like forgot that album existed. So for those of all that forgot that album existed, well, I guess that could be a good thing. So we're here talking about this album, revisiting it, and there you have my son joining us. Okay, go talk with your sister.
He's down for the drawings of it, that's for sure. He's the one helping with the artwork.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. He was complaining about the album, as you clearly see. No, so there you had a cameo by my son. That's what happens. But yeah, we're here to talk about this album. So I know that I think first of all, I'm joined again by Chili from Live Listening Erase. How are you, Chili?
I'm doing very well, and thank you again for having me on the panel.
Yes, and this time your volume will be louder.
I hope so. If only.
And then we have obviously returning like a veteran to this channel, JC Rock and Metal Reviews, coming from you from outer space today. How are you, JC?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Yeah. So, so did you guys listen to this? You know, first of all, we're gonna do the 3 rounds. We have the first round where we give our first impressions of this album. Then we go to the second round where we pick 3 songs. I think for this one, I dare to say we can pick 4. And then the final round where we give it a final rating and we vote thumbs up or thumbs down. So let's start today with JC. So JC, did you actually listen to this when it came out in 2020?
No, I listened to it today, a couple of hours before we're filming this. I kind of put it off to the last minute. I was a fan of Green Day in the 90s with Dookie. That's a great album. American Idiot, it's another great album. They have a couple other good ones, Nimrod. And I kind of like, forgot about them. This came out in early 2020. I was listening to, like, I remember like Testament came out around that time. I wasn't really interested in Green Day anymore, so I kind of like just basically forgot they existed. And then you told me to listen to this, and I listened to it today, and I guess I was surprised because it doesn't sound like Green Day. It sounded like something completely different. And then I did some research. I read up on this album and the band, and they were going for this I guess garage rock revival, like the Strokes, the Hives, like those types of bands.
They're trying something.
Yeah. I know Billy Joel Armstrong, he doesn't sing in his normal like voice, which that we're used to. Maybe on a couple songs he does, but a lot of it's like he does this like falsetto singing, and it just like sounded completely different. There's I was reading up on it, and I think they were going for like this like rock and roll kind of feel. They were inspired by like Mott the Hoople and T-Rex, and but some songs are just complete rip-offs. I'll talk about that in the next round, but
Yeah.
it just it was different. That's all I'll say at this point. Yeah.
Smart
Yep.
man for just putting it out for last minute. And the good thing is it's a 26-minute record.
Yeah.
So Chile, did you listen to it today as well?
Unfortunately, no, I have been listening to it for the last 2 days. When you first sent me the email, I put it off. I had the choice of either listening to Dream Theater's Octavarium, which is the length of this entire album, or would I listen to the Green Day album? And wisely, I chose Octavarium. So, yeah, I put it off for a day, and then I decided to play it. And it kind of made me wonder because Green Day is a band that I kind of lost interest in around about the time of 21st Century Breakdown. You know, American Idiot was massive. You couldn't escape, the airwaves of American Idiot and every other song that came out from that album. But, when 21st Century Breakdown came around, I was a bit over Green Day, and I definitely didn't listen to Uno, Dos, and Trey and whatever the hell that thing is. And neither did I listen to Revolution. Yeah, so I've heard. But yeah, when you you messaged me and said, "Oh yeah, but we're going to do an episode on this," Father of All. I looked at it and I'm like, "Oh, look at that! They got the same artwork from American Idiot, with a unicorn just vomiting rainbows on it, which surmises the sound I guess they're trying to go for." So yeah, when I played this album, I couldn't put my finger on it. The first track, and I'm listening to it going, what the hell is this sounding like? There's a band that they're just exactly sounding like, and I couldn't figure it out. They're completely different sound. Like, JC was saying, they're going for that polished garage rock kind of sound from the early 2000s that really made waves. But they're pushing it in 2020, go figure. Green Day's not one to really shy away and do other stuff, but it doesn't suit them. It sings in falsetto and in some of the tracks, especially the opening one, and I'm like, this is horrendous. This is, and then I kind of warmed to it a bit as well later on as well. But the band that I was thinking of, what did they sound like, was, in my mind anyway, early Eagles of death metal. So yeah, I'm thankful the album's very short, but listening to it the past 2 days, it's very different. As JC pointed out, to, of course, Dookie and every other album they've released. That's yeah, there we go. See, you're repping the shirt there. And yeah, it's very different to what I guess you might expect, especially if you haven't listened to Green Day in a decade or so. So interesting but conflicted would be the first impressions.
Yeah. So I actually did listen to it when it came out in 2020, because back in 2020, I didn't have a channel, but I used to write for a blog. And they're like, oh, write for this Green Day album. And I saw the cover. And the first thing I thought was like, what the hell is this cover? There's like a unicorn and the name. And the cover put me off. And I got to say that I also lost touch with Green Day after 21st American Breakdown, because Uno, Dos, Tres, they weren't, they had some decent songs, but they weren't that great. And the radio breakdown wasn't good as well. So they've been on a decline. After American Idiot and 21st Breakdown, they've been on a decline for me. So I lost touch with them, but I love their old stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'll listen to it. And before I went on, I was reading a caption from my review of 2020. And it said that to summarize the sound of this record is the sound of a unicorn shitting in your ear. And that was my caption. So 3 years later, does it still sound to me like a unicorn shitting in your ear? Well, I leave my final thoughts to the end. But yeah, when I listen to this album, it sounds different. It also, there's some songs that I don't know why they sounded to me like a fucking Gap commercial.
Yeah.
And for those of
Mm.
you, I don't know if you have Gap in Australia, but it's
Mm.
it's a store, and you have clothes, and they have some commercials, and they sounded, especially that "Oh Yeah" track, and oh my God, we'll talk about that track later because
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone has some thoughts on that track. So yeah, on initial,
Oh, yeah, we do.
I thought it was bad. 3 years ago, I thought it was bad, and this came out like a few weeks before COVID happened. So I have a theory that this album opened the portal for the first Saki thing in 2020. So there you go. But I think a lot of people forgot it. So we're going now to the second round where we're gonna pick. Are you okay with picking 4 tracks from this? I think this album merits picking 4 tracks. So so JC, 4 tracks from this album that you think are the weakest.
Okay, track number 1, Father of All, the first single. It's Green Day singing the falsetto vocals. It just doesn't work. It's they're going for that garage rock sound, like I was saying before, the Strokes, the Hives, like more like maybe like the Killers, like that type of song. Also, like the production, it's very like overproduced. Because for this type of song, also when you're doing garage rock, I think they're probably like want to have more of like this raw production, but this sounds like a modern like pop production with way it sounds. So second one, track 3, Oh Yeah, this one we're talking about. It has the sample, which was actually a Joan Jett song, but actually written by Gary Glitter.
Oh no.
And Gary Glitter, this guy, we probably all know what he did. So that caused like a lot of controversy with that one. So that one is just a really bad one. It doesn't sound like punk rock at all. It doesn't sound like Green Day. It sounds like just this really bad like 70s like glam rock song. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like something you would put like in an NBA game or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yep.
Okay, so my next one, the next one is going to be track 4, "Meet Me on the Roof." This one, I guess, just again, just the vocals really bother me on like pretty much most of these tracks. They don't sound like Billy Joe Armstrong. It's just very poppy and upbeat, and the sound is very processed. And another problem with this album in general is like you barely hear any guitars. I mean, you can hear the bass guitar in a few songs, but a lot of it sounds just like electronic rock or something. But like you don't hear those guitar chords that we know of this band. Maybe a couple songs, like towards the end of the album, there were a few songs which I thought were okay. But my fourth one, "Stab You in the Heart." This is them trying to sing like rock and roll from the 1950s. And it doesn't work because it basically rips off the song called "The Hippie Hippie Shakes" by the Swingin' Blue Jeans. I don't know if you know it. It's like you got the hippie hippie shakes. It's like this. If you listen to both songs, which I did, I had to like stop the song and like and it's the same guitar riff, same chorus basically, but instead of like the hippie hippie shakes, they're saying like "stab you in the heart," like something like that. So that one is probably one of the worst offenders on this album. So that's all. That's my 4. I can probably pick others, but yeah.
you could probably pick out the whole fucking album.
How long of an episode do we need?
Yeah, this is like Roger Waters redux of Dark Side of the Moon all over again. So, what about you, Chili? 4 tracks are the worst for you.
So I did have a quick notes written down for worst tracks. Wrote something here. It says everything really, but first one I wrote here was Take the Money and Crawl, which feels like a knockoff riff from Nirvana's Negative Creep to a degree. It's just this kind of generic, power chord structured song. It didn't do it to me. Oh yeah, of course, everyone's picking this track because oh yeah, it sucks. All I can think of now is just that the red jug coming through. Oh yeah, this song sucks. I mean, it sounds like the band wrote this with the intention of it to be used in an Apple product advertisement. It's just so generic pop rock.
Or a Gap commercial.
Or a Gap commercial. Yeah, that's it. This Gap thing's taken off. Ooh, I don't know what it is, but I know of the thing. We don't have it here in Australia, so I don't know. Maybe it's
much, my friend.
I suppose it's like Target here in Australia or something. Actually, Target in Australia is, I think, different than America, but getting beside the point here. My next one, I actually had a few here, but I had Father of All. All I wrote was bleh. It was just yuck. The closing track as well, Graffitia, which to me was a polished piece of shite. I just do not like that closing track. And actually, JC, I have a question for you on the thoughts of the grammatical error of the song "I Was a Teenager," as opposed to what
I
exactly.
was gonna say that actually. I hate the title. It's stupid. Doesn't make any sense. But I think that one was kind of like one of the ones which was a little more listenable. I mean, not a good song, but I mean, I thought it was okay. But it's just that I was going to pick that one just for the title.
I was a teenager. I rather
it doesn't make any sense.
Teenage Dirtbag Baby by Whitney.
And also the fact that these guys are like, I mean, keep in mind that these are like 50-year-old guys.
Yeah, they're not young.
I mean, I looked it up. They were all born in 1972. That's a year after I was. So they're probably 51 now. I guess when this came out, they were like 49 or something. But even still, like I was a teenage. Like you're still too old for this type of music.
Your teenage years was in the 80s. Come on, dude. We don't sing about being a teenager in 2020. I did, though, learn that today I learnt the meaning of tautology, which is the needless repetition of a single concept. So word of the day, people out there. There you go. But yeah, I mean, look, if I had to limit it down, I'd probably just say, Take the Money and Crawl, Oh Yeah, Father of All, and Graffitia would be the worst tracks for me. That's 4. Yeah. That's it. I mean, I could go on.
That's interesting. I'm just like trying to focus, and I'm like, what the hell is my song trying to do? He's being a teenager, but he's only 4 years old. So this album, you could talk about a whole lot of tracks. So I want to talk. The first one I also picked was "Take the Money and Crawl," but I have a whole story. I was listening to the song today in the car with my son, and he's like, "Oh, I like that song," and then I'm like, "Oh, you like that song?" And then there's a part of that song that I'm just gonna read the lyrics. There's a part where it says, so you want to take a walk, or you can suck my, what it says. And I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna call me for child abuse.
Gary Glitter is interested.
Yeah, but it's, oh my God. I had Gary Glitter on the line, like you called. I'm like, no, pervert. But that song, like just the lyrics alone are bad as hell. And and it's a song that really I didn't hear the Nirvana thing. I just thought it was like very generic and it sounded bad. What do you think, Ignacio? Did it sound bad, that song? He's laughing. He stay there. So he I was listening in the car with him, and he was like, "Oh yeah," he was laughing. He thought it sounded hilarious, the song. Yes. So
couldn't blame him.
Besides that song, obviously, "Oh Yeah," it's just a terrible track that sounds like it could be like you know, when you go to an NBA or sport game and they go like, dun, 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 oh yeah, that's what it sounded like. Like they wanted to have a song so it could be played at a game and they could get more money from it. But yeah, it samples a Gary Glitter song, and it sounds, it's not good to you know, to like sample that dude. I think other songs that I think are really bad, Graffitia, it sounds like a it sounds like a West Side Story on crack. Like that's what it sounds like. It's a terrible album closer. And I'll pick a different one. Let's pick a different one. Fire, Ready, Aim.
Okay.
It just didn't. It's like it just didn't do anything. It's boring as hell, and it doesn't do anything. You know, from this album, you could pick you could pick any track, and there's bad stuff that you can find on all of them. So now we're going to the third round and final round, where we give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. JC, what do you think of this album?
It's a thumbs down for me. It's just really bad. It's too short. It doesn't sound like Green Day. There really like aren't any songs I like. There were maybe a few songs which I thought were maybe like okay, maybe listenable, like some of the ones on like towards the end, maybe like Junkies on a High, Sugar Youth, you know, but the problem is it doesn't sound like Green Day. It sounds like they're trying to do something else. These are these guys who are like, you know, almost 50 years old and still doing this type of music. I think it just doesn't work. I think it's just like this band, like they need to do something again. I know they have another album coming out. I haven't really listened to the single, but
they're much
need
better.
to do something like another like American Idiot, something more like that.
The new singles sound amazing compared to this. Yeah. Believe me.
Okay.
So, you're setting the bar low, though. That's like saying, you know, Metallica's Saint Anger is, you know, and then Death Magnetic.
But you know what? There's a case to be made. Like, you can have like lyrics of different types and do it right. Like Blink-182, their new album.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And
yeah, it is.
And you know what? And they're almost the same age. But doing it without being like, they still sound like them, but they have some more mature songs, so it can be done.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's a thumbs down for me. So
yeah, I'm gonna go hitting both.
No way. A thumbs down. For me, I mean, it's an interesting one, you know. I want to play actually devil's advocate here, because I know both of you have listed tracks as your worst songs that I actually I thought were actually all right. So I want to say, first of all, for me, Fire, Ready, Aim, I thought it was pretty cool. Had some grounded riffs there that I really did enjoy. I'm not going to say they're extremely amazing, and definitely not in my top, you know, 30 or 40 Green Day songs, but it was better than what was on there, in my opinion. And the other one was Stab You in the Heart, which JC, you said you didn't like, and of course it uses the common riff from what was it called? Hippie what?
It's called it's an old song, the Hippie Shakes by the Swinging Blue Jeans. It's something it's like a song I knew, but I had to like look it up. Yeah.
I mean, because it was, that riff has been used by dozens of other bands. You could probably go through, I think, like the Beatles, the Beach Boys, even Agents of Orange, I believe, went through and have used this similar, you know, chord structure in songs of theirs. But I guess because I know that that riff is pretty famous, has been used by multiple artists. For me, because it's such an awesome riff, I like that song. You know, so for me, I did like that. And as well as that, Sugar Youth, which is probably the closest punk sounding track you'll find on the album. These three tracks are not enough to save it, because everything else is just horrendous. So definitely a thumbs down. I would just get rid of this album, you know. So yeah, thumbs down for me.
So it's erased by Chile, and
Oh,
my song is like
it's this one right
it's
here.
going back and forth. I'm like, okay, please stop. So yeah, I listened to this album when it came out, and like I said, I am standing by my 2020 final thought of like this is the sound of a unicorn pooping in your ear. So I still feel that way. I think I hated it more when I had to listen to it back then because I already knew what to expect. But I think Sugar Youth is the only one that sounds like a little bit more like punk Green Day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the rest of them, they're pretty. I picked Fire Already Aim to pick something different, but Father of All is an atrocious song. I know it's an atrocious song. The lyrics are like they're like being like very immature, but not in a clever way. Like for example, I said Blink 182. Blink 182
Yeah.
on their new album, they have some songs that are mature, but they have some songs with some humor. But you know what? They work. It doesn't sound forced. For Green Day, this album sounded forced as hell. Like I don't know if they were trying to punk the record label.
Yeah, I don't
they
know.
were trying to like put out an album to get out of a contract. I don't know. But this was my top album of the year in 2020 in the bad side. So it was my worst album of the year in 2020, and I think it's still atrocious. Right?
Absolutely. It's still got that last ability, does it? After all these years.
So yeah. Final thoughts. This album is bad, and I'm giving it a thumbs down. So it's going down the drain. So we have Ignacio thumbs down for Green Day, right? It's bad, right? Yes, it's bad. He says it's bad too. He's saying that JC is in planet Earth. I don't know why.
JC's over the moon now that we've given this all thumbs down.
Ignacio, he's over the moon. So this is gonna be our the next episode for Suicide Silence will be the final Is It That Bad for this year, and then we'll be back in the new year. So I want to thank Live Listening Race for joining. If you can subscribe to his channel, he's got some great content. And of course, you can subscribe to JC Rock and Metal Reviews as well. And I'm like 8 subscribers away to 1,000K. To 1,000K. So please, people, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. We have more content on the way. So until next time, this is Hector, the shield dude on a couch. Yes, I will open this. And I'll see you here next time, right here on the couch. Thank you. And say good night. Say good night, Axel.
Good night.
Good night.